right. Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing? Hope everyone's having a great day so far. Happy Friday, if you're tuning in on Friday. But we're excited to do another Workout Wednesday live stream here. And this is my week, so pretty excited. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. So this is what we're going to be building today, or this week. This is what we're doing. So we've got a trend line, we've got 4 KPIs, and then up at the top we've got the and then up at the top we've got 4 separate filters here, you can see. So we've got order date, so you can choose your date range, basically how much of the trend line to show. We have date granularity, which changes the way changes the grain of the date that the trend line is aggregated to. And then over here, right, so we can change, so right here we can change this from monthly, quarterly, or weekly. So if I change this to that, you can see that it changes to quarterly. And then additionally, what you can see is you get to select a separate period from that granularity that you chose, right? So you can choose a particular quarter within that date range, and it changes with every change that this static list changes or updates every time you make a selection here, right? So if I change this from quarterly to monthly, you can see here that the list is again updated to show the weeks or the months, the year and month. And then if we change, if we go in here and we change this to just this year, right, we can see that nothing is highlighted, but we can go in here and now we just have the months from this year that we can select, and there it is, right? So that's what we're going to be doing today. That's what we're going to be building. Actually, I already built it because it's my week, right? So what we're going to do is we're just going to reverse engineer this, look under the hood at a few things, and then go from there. So it's not going to be as technical as I do as I do all the other weeks, because I've already built it, right? So yeah, we're just going to talk through it and understand how I did all these different things. So that's what we're going to do. So the first thing that we need to do here, the first thing that we did, obviously there's, you can see here, I'm kind of showing my hand here, but there are separate sheets, right? There are separate sheets for each granularity, week, month, and quarter. So that should give you a hint right away that I'm not doing any fancy, not doing as much fancy stuff. So let's talk about some of the reasons why this kind of works, or you have to do it this way. Because, interestingly, this is actually a challenge that I faced with a client, or my team and I faced with a client earlier this week, last week, where they wanted to do this, and we tried multiple different ways to figure it out. And so this was the option that we came up with, which the client really enjoyed. So now, there are lots of different ways to do lots of different things in Tableau. This is just one of them. A lot of times what I've done is, whenever I do this kind of thing, is I'll just make basically a dynamic date field, and then I'll put that on rows. So instead of having 3 different sheets, you could just do it all in one. Apologies. Apparently I didn't get much sleep last night. No. So what you can do here, so one of the things, and that we have challenges, we have Workout Wednesday challenges that do that exact thing, that have you make one trend line, one sheet on one trend line, and then you use a parameter to change dynamically the grain of the data. I can't remember which week. There are so many now. But if you just go look in the history, in the backlog of Workout Wednesday challenges, you'll be able to find one. I'm sure of it. But that works for just changing the grain of the data. There are some additional complexities with this challenge, such as changing the being able to select a month, right? That's the biggest one. So, or being able to select a month and have this list over here change dynamically as you change the date granularity period from quarter to month to week to whatever you wanted to do. So the way that we're going to do this, I'm going to go ahead and hide all my unused fields so that we can really just get down to it, right? So the first thing I did is I created this what I called period date, and that is very simply and you can't see that because Tableau likes to open. That's one of the if I were to have my gripe about Tableau, which I have a few, but one of them is when you work on multiple monitors. So I have 3 monitors. I have my laptop, and then I have 2 external monitors. I never know where dialog boxes are going to open, right? I have Tableau. I have the application on on one screen, and then for some reason Tableau likes to open the dialog box on a completely separate screen, and I have to go finding every single time. I digress. So I created this period date. And I basically just did period type, which is a parameter. We'll go ahead and show that right here. And see, this one opens on the right one. See? Who knows? Okay, so period type as a string. And that's one of the really nice things, again, about Tableau is you can actually use parameter values as inputs into your calculated fields, right? So I just wrote what these are the date parts, right, that we are using in the date trunk calculation. Previous versions of Tableau, this was not possible, but they figured it out, so I appreciate that. So yes, in previous versions of Tableau, I would have to have this, and then I would have to write another calculation that would basically interpret quarter as literal string quarter, and so on and so forth. But Tableau figured out how to make parameters as literal strings. So anyway, made this parameter, which is pretty nice, and then just did the period date of whatever period you've selected here to truncate to that period of order date. So that's period date. Okay. I've got order date here on filters, and that's the continuous filter, right? So so you can see here now, like that's what changes, right? That's what, if I change this to quarterly, right? You can see all that happen. Okay. Now, next thing that I did is I had to do the dynamic KPIs. So that is just looking at, this is just a string parameter, and I just put in profit, and then I did and then I did selected KPI right here, calculated field. So when my measure parameter equals sales, then the sum of sales, so on and so forth, orders, count of orders, yada yada yada. That's pretty straightforward. So that goes there, and that's what changes whenever I and then I used a parameter action whenever I created the KPIs, right? The KPIs. So these are just, so this is interesting. So I used, again, lots of different ways, do lots of different things. I could have used measure names and measure values, could have, chose not to for the simple fact that I wanted multiple values on the same. I wanted multiple values within the same cell. And whenever you think of that, right? So within this, so when you think of that, what does that mean, right? You're new to Tableau, maybe. What does that mean? Well, I have multiple things here on this mark, right? I have the text of sales, I have the total sales, and I have selected sales. All of those are in one cell, right? All of those values are in one mark, right? You can kind of think, we kind of use, some of us, not all of us, use the terms cell and mark interchangeably because they're kind of the same thing. So whenever you hear me say cell or mark, I'm essentially saying the same thing. So you can see here down below, we've only got 4 marks on this sheet. All right, so we have a mark for sales, a mark for profit, a mark for profit ratio, and a mark for orders. Within each mark, I have 3 lines of text or 3 values. I've got the text, I've got this total value, and I've got the selected value. All right, so does that all matter? Well, because you can't so when you do measure names and measure values, you only get 1 marks card. And anything you put on that marks card is going to be put on each and every single column, right? So I could have done measure names and measure values, and then I would have had measure names on columns, so I would have had 4 columns, 1 column for each measure. But then if I wanted to put, I would have had this 45,989 would have shown up on every other one because I only have 1 marks card. So I went with the placeholder value. I went with the placeholder route. So I just created it's just a very simple calculation. I think it's like min 0.0 to make it a float. Yeah, min 0.0. That makes it a float in case you need to change your axis to get it lined up right. And then I just created 4 columns. That gave me 4 separate marks card. And within a separate marks card, you get to do whatever you want. So you can make each one different, right? So pretty cool. Now what I need to do is let's see. So I've got total value, right? So I've got all sales. So if we just look at this first one on sales, right? It's just the table scope of sum of sales as a level of detail calculation. It's not a fixed calculation. Technically it is, but I like to say table scope because you can see I'm not defining any dimensions here. So that's something to think about there. So we just got the sum of sales across the entire table, incorporating any context filters, which order date is a context filter. Then we have selected sales, which is going to be whatever value we've selected. So here is going to be the sum of sales for July of 2023. And for that, selected sales, right? So it's just calculation 2 because I like to confuse people and my future self. So let's go look at calculation 2 and let's give it a proper name. Okay, so this is time periods. This is time period set. All right, so let's back up here, right? So time period MQW sets. Let's go take a look at those. So you can see here I've got sets based on each one. So I have a time period M set, or I have a time period M set, and then I have a time period M text field. So let's look at that. There we go. So you can see here I tried to do everything in one calculation. And again, as I started building this out, it didn't really work. So that's why I've commented these 2 out. So for time period M, I'm doing case period type. So when period type equals month, then give me the date name of year plus, right, this whole thing. And that's what gives me the year, the dash, and the 2-digit month, right? So this part right here, this part that I'm highlighting right here, that is what will give you a leading 0 for your months, for your 0 through 9 months, or 1 through 9 months, right? So you can see here I've got leading zeros. So that calculation right there is what will give you your leading zeros, if that's needed. I like it because it lines everything up nicely, right? But each to his own, right? Each to their own, whatever. Okay, so and basically the way that this is doing, if the length of the date part of month is equal to 1, right? So what we're doing is we're taking the date part of month of our particular order date, and we're just doing we're calculating the length of that. So basically, if the length of the month is equal to 1 digit or 1 character, then I want you to place a 0, right? So that's a hard-coded 0 concatenated with that, with the digit, with that character. Else, just give me the character, right? So that's how you get your 2-digit. That's how you can get your leading zeros. So if you ever need leading zeros on anything, that's how you can do it. All right. So then we just we created that for month, right? So that's going to give us our dynamic. That's going to give us a dynamic period here. And then we have period set M set. So we edit this set. We created it, but now we're going to edit it. And you can see here we just selected one. Doesn't really matter. And then we just use that same calculation logic to do the other time periods, right? One for quarterly, one for weekly. Okay? And we just create that. And then if we go back to this time period set, now we're just saying which one of those is true, right? So whichever one is true, right? So we have time period set M, Q, or W, right? And we're doing ORs, so it's just finding the first one that's true. And you'll see why this works in a little bit. If I do, where is it? Selected sales, yes. So time period set. So if any one of those sets is true, take the sales, return the sales, and then do whatever you need to do with it, right? So that's how we're getting that's how we're creating our KPIs. Okay. Now, how do we bring it all? And then we just duplicate that, right? So I did weekly, right? Now, when I go to weekly, right? So you can see here, I'm going to the weekly sheet, but my time period is still monthly. So, and you can see here, and you can probably guess what's going to happen if I go to quarterly. Right? It's still there. Okay? So, how am I doing this? Well, I put everything on a dashboard, and I'm using dynamic zone visibility. So, dynamic zone visibility allows you, so you can see here, I have this sheet. This sheet is being controlled with visibility using a monthly, with my monthly Boolean calculation. Additionally, I have this set control, right? I have this set control, and it is also being controlled by that. And then we just put every single one on there. We just put all of the, so that's another thing I need to also talk about is we have set controls, right? So what happens here is we have, right? So we have the set, right, is actually being shown. That's what's here. But it's not being shown on this one, but it is being shown on the other one, right? So you create each sheet, right? So here we're at quarterly. Let's go to that sheet. And you can see here, let's see, yeah. So now as I change this to weekly, now here's my weekly, and it is changing, right? You can see it's updating here. So dynamic zone visibility, set controls, right? And parameters, and some funky date math. So that's how we're doing this, right? So we create a parameter that allows us to change the granularity. Based off of that granularity, we create a dynamic list of periods within that granularity. Put all of that on a dashboard, and then just use dynamic zone visibility to show which one you want. So that's how we do it. You cannot do this any other way. It has to be done on separate sheets because set controls are sheet specific. They can't be done on, you can't, sets only work, they're binary, right? They're true false, right? You can't necessarily do everything in one, right? So that's why we had to create different sets for each different great date granularity for that. So that's how we did it. What else? Oh, this shape, right? So I went into Figma and I created this shape, this little sparkline shape to help show which selected period, or to show which selected KPI you were doing, right? So how are we doing that? Well, again, because we have a mark card for each different one, I just did custom shapes, and I have one for true, and I have it in my icon folder. That's the catch-all, right? So I have this right here. Now, so that's for the true, right? But what about for the false? How do I not have anything for false? Because as you know, if you've used Tableau and custom shapes, you got to have a shape for false. You got to have a shape for everything, right? So if we go here, you can see here that I have a false. I should have a shape here. Well, one of the great tips that I've got from the Flurlage twins, I think it was Kevin, is you can actually do transparent. You can actually create a transparent shape. So that's what I did. I just created a transparent shape, and I just changed that shape to transparent. And the other thing you could do is you could do a no outline shape that is colored the same shape as your background, right? Now, might require a lot of shapes if you change your backgrounds a lot, but each to their own. All right, so that's how we do that, which is pretty cool. So there you go. Let's take a look at our interactivity actions. Yes, so weekly. So Tim just asked a great question. If I go back over here, I change this to weekly, you'll see. Yes, I could have, that would require, yeah, so I just did week, whatever, right? You could, with a little bit more date parsing and parting and concatenation, you could certainly create that string of week start date, right? It would take a little bit more, it'd take a little bit more calculations to write it, but yes, absolutely you could do that. You would have to, yeah, you could do that. It would basically be the same, right? It would be year, month, and then the start date of that. So, so yeah, you could easily do that. That's a great idea. Because yeah, who knows when week 37 is, right? Um, Everyday analysts probably do. Or everyday analysts probably don't know, but I would be willing to bet that your accountants probably do. Or they at least have a quick reference of it within iShot. So just depends on your audience, right? So just be kind of aware of that. But cool. All right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up. Appreciate you watching. Hope you all have a great weekend. And yeah, as always, we are data people. I'm Hipster Viz Ninja. Go forth and viz.